Hello students, let's read the problem. And it says, the internet service company sends 480 megabytes in 12 seconds. Which of the following graphs shows the slope in megabytes per second in this situation? So let's see what's happening here. Well, they're talking about an internet service company. And what is it that they do? They send you 480 megabytes in how fast? In 12 seconds, right? Okay. And the question is asking me which one of the graphs shows the slope of the megabytes per second in this situation. Okay. So let's see if we can go back and check on my X and Y axis. So for example, megabytes, where do you find the megabytes? Well, megabytes are right here, which is my Y axis. Is that right? And notice how every one of my graphs has the same thing on the Y, right? Which is good. That means that that's the only way that I need to write down my numbers without changing or nothing. What about seconds? Well, seconds is the time that it takes for that internet service company to send those megabytes. And that's still on the x-axis. Very good. Okay, are we good up to there? So let's go back and write the labels. So the megabytes is going to be my y values because it's on the y-axis. And the 12 is going to be my x values because that's on the x-axis. So let's write down my comparison. Since we're talking about a slope, remember you're supposed to still think about, oh, my y of 2 minus my y's of 1 goes on the numerator. And yes, so that still goes with change of the y over the change of the x, where the y is going to be the megabytes that they sent, megabytes, and the x is still the seconds that it takes to get there, right? Okay, so what numbers are given to you? Well, I see 480 megabytes, so that goes on the numerator. And then I do see a 12, which is my seconds. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to simplify that. Okay, so I'm going to write down again my comparison. I am not going to write down the labels. We'll do that at the end. So what is that equals to? Well, it implies for me to simplify. So it's up to you. You can divide by 2. You can divide by a big number. You can divide by, it depends on what you want. My advice is always divide by a small number first, and then you can take it from there. For example, I know I can divide both of them by 2. Okay, so if I divide by 2, I am going to get 240 over 6. Okay, and can you simplify that one again? Yes, I can divide both of them by 2 again. And I will get 120 over 3. Is that right? So now I have more comparison or more ratios that I can actually use for the graph. So I'm going to write down those answers over here, but I'm going to write it down as an ordered pair. So be careful. Remember, this is your change of the y on the numerator, change of the x on the denominator. So when you write the ordered pairs, it's kind of backwards, right? Not 480 doesn't go first. 12 goes first. Then 480 goes on the y. What about the next one? 6 goes on x, 240 goes on y. Next one will be 3 goes on x, and 120 goes on y. So I can actually use any of those points or ordered pairs on the graphs to see which one it's the one that identifies that. So let's do it. I'm going to look at the first one, which is 3 and 120. 3 being x, 120 being your y value, okay? So I'm going to look at letter A. here's 3, and 120 is right somewhere between here. Well, even if I'm not sure about the exact location of 120, look at where the point is. And the line, I see the line way up here. So can that letter A be my answer? No, that point is not even close to the line. Okay, let's go to B, which is down here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to choose 3, which is right here, and 120 on Y. So this is 100. So 120 goes somewhere in there. So I'm going to go up and across. Look at where the intersection is. It's not close to the line. Okay, so I can tell that A and B cannot be my answers, right? So let's go to C. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm still choosing the first point, 3 and 120. So this is my 3, and 120 is somewhere between 100 and 150. Is that right? So I'm going to go across, and I'm going to go across on 3, and that looks pretty much close to the line. Is that correct? So this point kind of checks for C. But just to be on the safe side, we can check the second point, which is 6 and 240. So let's check that one. So I'm going to choose 6 now and 240. This is 200. 240 is just below 250. So I'm going to go across, and I'm going to go up on 6. And notice how there's a point right there. Okay, so it seems very clear that the answer is C. But if you're doubting, we can always check on D, right? And we'll do the same thing. I'm going to choose 3 and 120, which is somewhere here. So 120 and 3. It's a little bit below the line. But if you feel kind of uncomfortable, we can check the second one, right? So I'm going to check now 6 and 240. So that's 6, and this is 240, right below the 250. This is 6 over here. So look at what happened here. That is a little bit more off. So the first point was kind of like a tricky part for us, right? But the second point, you can see that is way off the line. So my answer then, it's letter C for this one. Okay, did you notice that the question was asking you something about per second? And we kind of didn't find per seconds. But if you were to continue simplifying 120 and 3, both of them can be divided by 3. Is that right? And if you divide by 3, you will get 40 over 1. So 40 over 1 is another point that you can actually find on the graph. And I'm going to write it down here. And this is what basically means. This 40 over 1 means 40 megabytes in 1 second. Okay, so if you read each one of the ratios, this will 120 over 3 will read 120 or 120 megabytes in 3 seconds. The 240 over 6, you will read this as 240 megabytes in 6 seconds. So that's the reason why this is very important for us to write it down. Okay, so if you look at the graph, the 40 and the 1, this will be the 1. And 40 is actually not exactly a nice point. That's the reason why we were not choosing that one. But I know it is right below 50, right? So this will be your per seconds, okay? Just something extra for you to get.